Hello, and welcome to Fractional Futures, the podcast for CEOs, founders, and investors looking to understand modern marketing leadership. I'm Paul Mills, founder at VCMO, and today we're moving one step deeper into the world of fractional marketing. In the last episode, we explored 3 early warning signs that a business might need a fractional CMO. Today, we're answering the next logical question: what does a fractional CMO actually do? This episode is all about impact, the tangible leadership, the thinking, and the structures a fractional CMO brings to transform reactive marketing into a strategic, commercially aligned growth function. And as Drucker famously reminded us, business has only 2 essential functions: marketing and innovation. Today, we're going to show you why marketing needs to sit at the strategic heart of the organization. Joining me again is the brilliant Rachel Wheatley, a chartered marketer, a SOSTAC certified planner, and fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. Hi, Rachel. Welcome back. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to be here again.
For the listeners who may not have met you for the first time, do you want to do a quick background into your expertise?
Yes, I mean, I've been in marketing a good many years. Broadly speaking, the first half of my career, I was in-house working for different companies before I came out of house and started my own business about it's actually over 15 years ago now. I work now as a fractional CMO for certain size companies, upwards of £2 million, often up to 25 or even £30 million for clients like in professional services, financial services, tech, education, and particularly where long sales cycles and building relationships with prospects and clients alike is really important.
Great stuff. And Rachel, I just want to jump straight in. We often talk about marketing capability at 3 levels: team, cross-functional, and organizational. From your perspective, how does a fractional CMO build strategic and operational capability for an organization?
Yeah, so I think, as you've mentioned, I think marketing capability works at 3 levels. And I think the first one, which is the kind of team level, is usually the most obvious one for people. And that, and what we do as fractionals come in and part of our role is upskilling, mentoring internal marketers, partly to equip them with the knowledge and expertise and the thinking skills to actually build their capability. And I guess in some respects that kind of safeguards the capability of the organization as well. So often what we do is we bring structure, we bring clarity, we kind of bring measurement frameworks, prioritization. It's a lot around performance and making sure that team works really, really well. I think the next level up, I see it like concentric circles really, is the cross-functional. So making sure that sales and marketing, customer service and product are all aligning together, talking to each other, seeing that customer journey as one, not working in silos. And then the third level, which I think is the one that most often people miss, is the organizational level. I think often marketing is seen as this peripheral team. We do marketing because we've got a marketing team, without recognizing that actually every function, every person contributes directly or indirectly to that customer journey. So for me, an organizational marketing capability is around really creating a customer-centric culture where you recognize that it's, you are serving the customer directly or indirectly. So that's how I see those kind of different levels of marketing capability.
And I think that organizational capability, I think all 3 levels are important. But I think if you're a business owner or business leader and you're looking to generate a competitive advantage, one thing you can have that puts you at advantage is having that organizational culture and capability that everyone is aligned to that customer, their needs, their wants, what they expect in terms of the product or the service. And I think if you've got an organization that is truly aligned, that every employee can explain in a few words what the value proposition is, or the value that a customer gets from using the product or the service, not just from a functional perspective, but also an emotional, why do they feel better about using something or buying a product? And a lot of companies say we want to be customer centric, but it's easier to say it than actually do it, because you need every single function to be aligned. And it's marketing that needs to lead that. When you go into organizations and they're sort of grappling with this, what sort of things do you do to bring that alignment and culture together?
I think there are a couple of ways in which I've done that successfully. One is to run workshops. So to some extent, they're almost marketing 101 workshops, but they might be around a particular issue and getting perspectives from different people and inviting people from around the business, finance, operations, warehouse. Everyone can have a contribution to make. For instance, you were mapping out the customer journey and looking at what marketing you had in place at each juncture, and so that's the stage at which the warehouse people who pack and send off stuff, for instance, say, oh, right, okay, so that little note that I put in, not just a packing slip, but packed by Paul, and thank you very much for buying from us, those kind of personal touches actually make a difference as a customer when you receive it. So that's, I think, when the penny starts to drop for those people. And the other way that I've done it is when I've come in and done an audit, so kind of looking at what's working and what's not, and just do a kind of state of the nation, where are we, and to be able to then map a kind of route for the next 12 or 24 months is speaking to everyone around the business, not just the marketing people, not just the sales people, but other people as well. And I did that earlier this year with a client. And actually, the feedback I got was people, just from those conversations where I was asking them questions about what was going on and how they did things, they started to understand what marketing was and wasn't, and that started a real shift in mindset. So I think those two ways are a really useful way of doing it, and actually talking to people internally, and asking for their perspectives and viewpoints.
Yeah, I think the concept of a customer journey is really, really important. It still staggers me how few companies actually have a properly mapped out customer journey that they can say to the different functions, right, in the customer journey, this is where your function
Yeah.
directly impacts how good the customer experience is at that point in the buyer's journey. And just having something, you can do it on an A3 bit of paper, you can have it as a poster. If people can visibly see what the different elements, what the touch points are for the customer or the buyer, the client, what your function can do to directly impact a positive experience versus a negative one. And when you have that visibly in front of you, you can suddenly feel a bit of ownership around the customer. You
Yeah.
suddenly can break down those silos between sales, marketing, customer services, warehouse. All of a sudden, everyone's pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, because I think there are plenty of companies who haven't formally mapped that customer journey, and I think for the ones who have, I'm not sure they then go the extra step, which is kind of inviting other functions other than marketing and sales to come in and say, what do we as a team, as a function, how do we contribute to the customer's experience? I think what you described, I suspect, is the least frequently done.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the advantages of a fractional CMO. It's really that strategic marketing capability that the strategic marketer will think harder and deeper about the client or the customer journey, and really push the business a little bit harder in terms of, are we
Yeah.
really doing everything we can to delight the customer and make them go wow at every experience they have of our brand?
Yes, and often I think kind of more objective viewpoint, and maybe at a more senior level than existing marketers, you can ask those tricky questions that maybe a kind of more junior, less experienced person would feel it would be awkward to ask them.
Absolutely. That marketing expertise coming in at that strategic level, it's really owning that customer journey. It's not just that top of the funnel
Mm.
advertising, making more people aware of what we sell. It's really everything below that. It's the entire journey from awareness to repeat purchase. If the organization understands that's what the role of marketing is, then they will kind of understand things in a much different light.
Completely agree. It's one of the things that drive me absolutely nuts is that marketing is pigeonholed in this top of the funnel bit, and it's just about the promotion. And I believe, marketing, that because marketing's horizons are much longer term, and marketing goes broader and deeper than other functions, you could start to think, well, actually, it's not just the promotion of it. It actually goes much deeper than that. Scopes the market, we identify the need, we help shape and develop products and services. There's any number of marketing activities you can put in place to not only find the right customers, but help sales win them, help customer service keep them. So it goes much broader and deeper than I think most people realise.
Can't remember what the stat was. I was reading it the other day. Every day, the average human is bombarded with 14,000 marketing bits and pieces. What that means is everyone becomes a marketer because we're all exposed to it. And often what happens, in businesses, people have kind of a very myopic view of what marketing is and what it does. And I think you've mentioned there that, marketing owns that customer journey. But if we're in an organization and there is that myopic view of what the marketer or the marketing team does, how can a fractional CMO come in and really transform those perspectives, reframing the narrative from marketing being just a cost center to they're an investment of the organization and we really need to support marketing because what they do, they are growing the business?
I think there are a number of ways in which we can do that. I think the initial thing probably, and maybe the priority, is going in and kind of looking at what's working and what isn't, and saying what's going on here, what are people doing, what's the job that marketing is doing, is it the right job? So, and what you're doing there, you're moving marketing beyond the activity, is just saying, actually, how do we measure this? What are the metrics that we need to put in place if they're not there already? And as you and I have talked about a lot, sometimes the success of marketing is measured in the number of impressions or clicks or website visits or whatever. And I think we, as fractional CMOs, you can move it way beyond that and say, actually, the KPIs and the metrics need to work at a kind of board level. What is it that the board wants to see? They, want to see customer lifetime value and how much does it cost to acquire each customer? And then at a more granular level, you might say, well, we need to build a framework so that sales and marketing can see what activities are working and how, and that we are encouraging, inviting those prospects to move down that customer journey towards purchase. And I think the other thing is looking at how internal and external resources are used. So, team capability. So what are they being asked to do? And sometimes they might have brought in a specialist to deal with Google ads and SEO, and actually they don't need that. What they need is a more generalist person, and outsourcing some specialist, maybe looking at agency performance and have they been briefed properly and what value are they providing, and kind of looking at how budget is allocated. So it's not all on advertising and PR, and the bane of my life used to be corporate entertainment as well. So I think that, there are a number of things I think that early on we can do, and do quite quickly, really, to start saying we want to shift the perception of marketing from being a cost or investment, and the way that we do it is this. It's about measurement, it's about KPIs, it's about finding out what's working, what's not, and creating a function, a team, a plan that really is effective.
One of my clients in the biotech space, they were spending quite a sizable chunk of their marketing budget on SEO and paid for ads on Google. And about 30% of their website traffic was coming through this advertising. They were spending quite a lot of money on it and had very little to show for that. And just looking at the Google Analytics and the various metrics I had, it was a very easy decision to switch it off because that traffic on average is spending 5 seconds on your site. So the very first thing I did, instantly was, let's turn it off. There's absolutely zero risk, reputationally or commercially, by switching this off. And straight away, tens of thousands of pounds were saved. I think unless you've got someone that comes in with that strategic awareness and the data that can say to a founder or a CFO, say, look, this activity is not adding any value, just switch it off. There's no risk. And I think this is the thing we're trying to do as fractional CMOs, as strategic marketers. We're trying to mitigate risk at everything we do.
Mm.
We're trying to increase the probability of growth. We're not always going to get it right because market is constantly evolving, regulations and all those macro forces are constantly evolving as well. So what we can do as strategic thinkers and
Mm.
growth experts, we can hedge our bets and increase the probability of only focusing on the things that are going to move the needle forwards.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good example from your client, actually, because I think, coming into the organization, you can say, actually, in the future, we might need SEO and kind of paid ads, but are they the right clients? You probably saw that they're not the right clients. And I think the other thing that I've seen in companies is they've got SEO and paid for ads and spending, as you say, a huge amount of money on it. But they're expecting people to go, especially in a kind of, more considered purchase, they're expecting people to click on an ad and buy, and it just doesn't happen. So actually, they might have the next step wrong. They might have kind of linked to a purchase page when actually they'd be better to link to some really useful educational content, for instance, and that's the next stage. So that success of that would not be sales, it would be the number of people who'd actually engaged in our fabulous content. So I think that was a really good example of how we as strategic thinkers can actually challenge things and say, we might come back to it, but if we are going to spend some money on this, then let's spend it wisely, knowing full well what we want to use that money for.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the business leader or the founder, they might have a preconceived idea of what marketing they might need to do. And the obvious thing is, we'll just invest in SEO because we need people to find us, and we'll do some paid for ads because people need to find us. That's great. There was a prospect I was talking to literally last week. They're a manufacturing company. I won't say what widgets they make, but it's a seasonal type of widget. And I went onto their website, and it was just like a catalog of part numbers. And
Mm.
the actual problem was, don't invest in advertising or SEO. The thing you need to fix first is your value proposition. You're not positioning
Yeah.
yourself for your audience. And sometimes it's the very simple things that are often overlooked where you think, actually, we need to get the sledgehammer out to sort this out. Actually, you don't need a sledgehammer. You just need a little bit of finessing.
Yeah.
And that can make a massive difference. And again, that's the real advantage of having that strategic leadership coming in and pointing these things out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other interesting thing you mentioned was actually, I think often companies kind of see the customer journey from their point of view without actually walking in the shoes of their customers, saying, what is it like for a customer to come onto our website and how do they get there? What's their experience? Are we seen as credible? Are we talking about the things that they are asking questions about? It's something often as simple as that. I think sometimes it's easy to be quite internally focused without actually remembering that we really need to stand in the shoes of our customers and understand their thinking and what it's like to be, what's their experience is.
Yeah, and it's very easy to second guess what the customer actually wants or needs to feel and what they value. And it's one thing guessing what that might be, a different thing than actually asking some real customers or clients what they really want, how do they feel when they use your service or buy your product or the service experience if something goes wrong.
Yeah, loads of quantitative data is great if you've got it. But actually, I found in the past that if I've gone into a company and interviewed 5 or 6 customers, it really doesn't need to be more than that. What you get from that is never a waste of time. It's always a good investment of time and resource to do that, because what you get out of those conversations is gold dust. It's comments about not just your service, but the products and how you're positioned and how the company's perceived. And so it means that you don't make those assumptions, which, as you say, are all too easy to make. So yeah, definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and I think it's probably a good segue actually to sort of jump into the final topic. And this is really around what a strategic marketing leader brings. It's that strategic clarity and commercial discipline. Once you've got that in place, the next bit is choosing the right tactics, choosing the right activities to make sure you hit those commercial growth targets and you increase revenue and you start growing. And it's really important that this is done not on guesswork, but evidence-led insights and intelligence. And we spoke in the last episode about the fractional CMO. One of the biggest shifts they can change or transform is moving away from reactive tactics to that more evidence-led strategy. Now, some listeners might be rolling their eyes thinking, we don't have time for strategy. We just need to do more stuff and just get on with it. You don't need to spend weeks and months doing research. That you can do it in a few hours. And there's loads of tools out there and frameworks that you can use to make this a much more accelerated process. So how can a fractional CMO come in? What sort of tools, what sort of techniques do they bring with them to break those bad marketing habits, to move away from reactive tactics to a strategic first approach to marketing?
I mean, I think there are a number that I regularly use, starting from the good old SWOT analysis. That's often a really interesting exercise to take a number of people through, but it kind of depends what you're looking at. So if you want to look at competitor analysis, for instance, you might want to use something like Porter's 5 Forces. If you want to do kind of a broader market landscaping and market research, you might use the PESTON analysis framework. Another useful framework that I've used a lot is from Watertight Marketing, which is called the Touchpoint Leak Assessment. So basically, it's a customer journey gap analysis. So what marketing do we have in place and what are we missing and where are our priorities? So there are lots of tools that we can use depending on what the need is. Somebody who is experienced can reach for the right tool in the right situation.
It's interesting that you mentioned SWOT, because I think of all of the marketing tools and frameworks out there, SWOT is probably the more well-known one. And I've seen it used so many times so badly. When I introduce SWOT to clients, SWOT is done at the very end of the process. We use all the models that you've mentioned already to do a comprehensive analysis of the internal organization. We'll use different models for the external. And once we've got all those insights, we put those insights into the SWOT, into those 4 quadrants. And that very quickly identifies what the strategic success factors are for the organization in the market they're competing. And very quickly, you can identify themes, and then you can quickly prioritize, okay, if we just pick one thing from each quadrant of the SWOTs, that's just 4 things we need to think about for this quarter or this year. It just really simplifies the entire approach to marketing. And very few organizations take that approach. And again, that's where they often fall down.
Yeah, no, I like that kind of bringing in, kind of using some of the frameworks and feeding those into SWOT. But I think you're right. I think often kind of, SWOT sits there, doesn't it, as a static thing. But actually what you really need to think about is those strengths and weaknesses. How does that actually inform our internal resourcing, for instance, or capabilities, and opportunities and threats? What are we going to do about them? What does that mean for our products and service development or our operations? How do we utilize those strengths and utilize those opportunities and really realize them? And what are we going to do about the threats? And there may be some things that you can't do anything about, but you just need to be mindful of them. But yes, I think that kind of using that to prioritize and help you make good decisions is really important.
Yeah, and it's important, with the strategic marketing leader coming in and guiding the organization through these tools and processes and techniques. Let's say you're an organization and you're losing customers to your competitors. Maybe they've just launched a more innovative product or a better quality service. Now, you might think, we need a more innovative product. But if you don't have the talent internally, if you don't have a particularly innovative culture, you're never going to catch up. And so that goes back to your talent strategy, where the marketing lead has to be talking to the head of talent or the head of people to say, right, we've actually got a capability gap in our talent. When we go to market, we need, to maybe change how we write the job spec or the skills we're looking for. And so that's really where marketing bridges the gap across those other functions to say, how do we make the functions work for that customer?
Yeah, and I think in that scenario, I think I'd want to know more from existing clients about why they chose us, and in terms of why would they choose this company rather than go to somebody else. So that kind of helps with just burnishing your positioning as well, because with the best will in the world, competitors are going to take your customers. So what would keep them actually? So often kind of thinking it in that way. If you started off in a marketplace where you were the sole provider, you can be very sure that there will be other competitors encroaching on your pie. And that's, I think, one of the things that we can do coming in as fractional CMOs is really, really kind of get people to kind of think and kind of look at the positioning. Does that need reframing? Talk to customers. How do we deal with that competitive threat? Because it may not be what people think, as you say. It may not be more innovation, more products.
Absolutely. And again, that's the classic knee-jerk of going to your gut instinct, thinking you know what the answer is, and then making investment decisions or people decisions based on that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And if at the end of the day you say, okay, those competitors are operating over there, what we're really strong as is this, and you just continue down that road. And this is why we know our customers will stay with us, is because of this. They won't leave us. They're unlikely to leave us as long as we kind of make good on our strengths.
And that's probably a good place to wrap up for this episode. So hopefully through the discussion today, you can see that a fractional CMO doesn't just do marketing. They actually design the marketing system or the ecosystem for the organization, for all functions to work harmoniously together for the benefit and value of the most important person, which is the customer or the client. With a fractional CMO, you get the external and objective leadership, someone who isn't emotionally tied to past decisions, internal politics, or organizational habits. And I think that's the most important value you get from hiring a fractional CMO. So if you're still listening at this point, and if you'd like to reflect on one thing, maybe reflect on this. Ask yourself, is your marketing delivering commercial value, or are you just doing activity and creating noise? In the next episode, we'll be exploring the different ways businesses can plug their marketing leadership gap, and we'll be exploring the different options you have, which is comparing fractional versus interim versus the agency model. So look out for that coming soon. If you want to benchmark your organization's marketing performance, we've linked our free marketing capability audit in the show notes. It takes less than 5 minutes, and you get a tailored report highlighting your strengths, any gaps you might have, and what areas you can prioritize. And it also comes with a complimentary review workshop with one of VCMO's chartered marketers. If you'd like to explore today's topic further, check out our article, What Does a Fractional CMO Do? The link is in the show notes. Thanks for streaming or viewing this episode. I hope you found it useful. Rachel, thank you again for being our guest and sharing your insights. And keep an eye out for the next episode coming soon.